Hey there everyone, welcome to our very first video tutorial for 8th graders, and our topic today will be Introduction to Problem Solving. Now for this video tutorial, the first thing that we want to look at is what is a problem, and we normally refer to a problem as an unexpected or unwanted situation or a matter that may occur and will require some steps in order to arrive at a solution. A problem solving, on the other hand, refers to the steps or the rules that will be followed in order to solve a problem that currently exists. Now, for this video tutorial, we will be looking at two ways in which we can solve a problem. The first is the use of an algorithm. Now, an algorithm refers to written steps or rules that are provided in order to solve a problem that currently exists. Our second problem-solving method that we will look at is the use of a flowchart. And as the term suggests, a flowchart refers to the use of symbols or overall the use of a diagram in order to show how a problem is solved. Before we look at a problem and its problem solving steps, we want to identify the four main symbols that are used for flowchart. The first one is referred to as a terminal, and a terminal is normally used or presented in the form of an oval, and there are two subsets of a terminal. The first is the start, which suggests that this is the first thing that we use in our flowchart when we are solving a problem, and the end option, which is the very last thing that we use once our problem has been solved. Now, the second symbol is referred to as our input operation or output operation. Now, our input/output operation refers to the information that we will enter once we start to solve the problem, or where the output is concerned, it is the result of whatever it is that we want to find. Now, for this example, the input operation was to enter two numbers. Using an example, whether using our calculator, we normally enter whatever number it is that we want to find, and where the output is concerned, we will either be finding the product, the sum, average, etc. Now, our third symbol is referred to, or the symbol that is used for the input output is referred to as a parallelogram, and as you can see, it is the slanted version of our square. Now, the third symbol is referred to as a process, and the symbol item is that of a regular square, or it can also be a rectangle. Now, in the process is where we perform our calculations. So again, using the calculator, we enter the two numbers that we wanted on the calculator. So what is it that these two numbers will be providing? It will be giving us the sum. And how is it that we find the sum? We use the addition symbol to be able to add both numbers together. So once we see process, we know that we're going to be performing calculations. And then our fourth symbol is the use of a flow line, and the flow line is normally used to connect each of the other symbols that we previously identified. So just to recap, the first symbol that we normally have is our terminal, and our terminal can be seen as a start and end. Our second symbol is our input or output operations. The input is whatever number or information that we are collecting in the first case, while the output would be the result based on the information that was collected. The third symbol is the process, and that is used for calculations. And then our final symbol is the flow line, which is used to connect each of the other symbols together throughout the problem solving process. Now, the first example, or well, the only one for this video that we're looking at is the question said, write an algorithm and draw the flow chart to find the average of two numbers. Now, the first thing that we will want to sort out is the algorithm, and we earlier referred to that as the English version of writing our steps, what we're going to do for each of the process. Now, the first thing that we want to first identify is what is the question asking us to do. So the question asks us to find the average of how many numbers? Two numbers. So again, using our algorithm, the first step would be using the terminal option that says start. So that's step one. After we have begun our problem solving using the start option, we move on to our next step. And the next step was to whether enter, read, or input, but in this case we're using the word enter. So we enter the very first number that we want. So that's step two. Step three, we want to enter the second number. Will we enter another number? No, because it only asks us to find the average of two numbers. Very good. Now the fourth step is to, before we can go to the average, we know that we have to find the sum of the two numbers. So we add the two numbers together. So that was num1 plus num2. And step 4 shows this. So it's saying, hey, let us find the sum of these two numbers before we are able to find average. And of course, this is steps that we are used to in math. So sum would be equal to the first number plus the second number, whatever number it is that you are using. We are just using the heading that says this is the first number, this is the second number. Step 5, once we have found the sum, step 5 now is to arrive at our average. Now, how do we find the average? Normally, our average would be sum divided by the number of the total number of numbers that we used, and in this case we only used two numbers. Now I could have implemented or used average equal num1 plus num2, but that process would be too long, and because I already found what num1 and num2 was, I was able to just go ahead and use a keyword, which is sum, because it is the answer for num1 and num2. So again, the average was sum divided by the total numbers, which was two numbers. If it was three numbers that we used, then the figure here would change to 3. Very good. And then step 6 now, once we have calculated the average, we now want to print out the average on our screen in order to solve the problem. And before we can consider our problem to be solved, we have to use the second option for terminal, which is the end option, and that would basically complete our algorithm for the problem solving. Now moving on to the flow chart, we are just going to represent this information in using the symbols that we identified earlier. So let's go. So for the flow chart, again, you will realize that the word start is in the option there. And then once our beginning terminal has been identified, we use our arrow to show that we are now moving on to the next step. And the next step was to identify two numbers. And in this case, based on the space that I had, I only use one box. Instead of two different boxes to say enter num1, enter num2, I use a comma to say that another number is being entered. So once that has been done, and this is the input, I enter the two numbers, so that's my input. I now again place my arrow to show what step is next. The next step was to find the sum of the two numbers that I collected, and so I show the formula that I use. So I said sum equal num1 plus num2, and this is the step after the numbers have been collected. Again, our arrow is there to show that we're moving on to our next step. And then once our sum has been completed, we are now really finding what the question asks us to find, which was the average. And of course, to find our average, the formula was average equal sum divided by the total numbers that we use, which was 2 numbers. And once our calculation has been completed, again, we use our flow line to show which step is next. And the final step was to just bring out the average. So once we use actual numbers, the number would show where we have output average. And once that has been completed, do we need to do anything else? The only thing that we have left to do, because the question did not suggest anything further, is to show the final step using our flow line, and that is our next terminal option, which is the end. And that is basically one easy way to create flowchart as well as algorithm. Now, you have received some questions, so we hope to see some results coming in, and some quizzes will be provided soon. Thank you so very much for watching, and I do hope that you enjoyed and you did learn from this video tutorial. Have a great day.